Your journey is never over until you return from it to share with society what you have learned. Dr. Robert Ballard. It's time for science, and it's time to talk about science communication. Our guest is Erin Winick Anthony, science communicator and founder of the company Steam Power Media, a science communication company focused on digital storytelling. We talk about what it means to be an effective science communicator, the importance and many components of effectively communicating about STEM and STEAM, her recent time on an ocean mapping expedition aboard the EV Nautilus, and being a competitive pinball player. Then we have a talk with Kelly Guarino of the Ocean Exploration Trust, which was founded by the discoverer of the Titanic, Dr. Robert Ballard. We talk about the organization and their ocean expeditions on the EV Nautilus. Listen up for exciting fellowship opportunities available to educators of all types and internship opportunities available to community college, undergraduate, graduate students, and recent graduates. Applications for 2026 are due in December, so don't miss out on applying for this amazing program. Well, it is time for science, and it is time to talk to Erin Winick Anthony. Erin is the founder of Steam Power Media, a science communication company focused on digital storytelling. Her clients include everyone from lunar rover company Astrolab to women in STEM-focused TV show Mission Unstoppable and the parabolic flight company Zero G, which is like the coolest thing ever. She holds a mechanical engineering degree from the University of Florida and uses her technical background to serve as a translator between scientists and the public, and has a social media following of over 250,000 and growing. And we are excited to talk to Erin about her science education journey, her experiences in her studies and beyond, and the cool things she's gotten to do, like her recent sea mapping adventure on board the EV Nautilus. So, Erin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
You are already vastly more interesting than me, so I love this. I always love talking to people who are more interesting than me. So I want to start where we always start, which is back at the beginning. Let's talk about your early science education, your early education, and how this path started for you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and I had definitely like a lot of, my family is either teachers or engineers, really. So I had definitely I became the fusion of those two, but I have a lot of family who really supports and encourages all of that. I grew up in the space shuttle era, so being able to see shuttle launches from my front yard. And I definitely had some good science teachers growing up, but it was a lot of kind of my family support and my mom who would save, a million paper towel rolls so I could make a marble run around the house and step outside at 3 a.m. to go watch a night shuttle launch. So always having that kind of be a part of my life, I think, is where it all started.
Well, we always emphasize that. I think that's great. Teaching education is one thing, but your parental support and support at the home, the family part of it is such a key part to science. Were there any teachers along the way that were particularly inspirational to you?
Yeah, so I had, I think my 5th grade science teacher, Miss Cutler, was a big one. She was was one of the teachers that had 50 class pets. She was in the portable out back and had everything from chinchillas to lizards to tarantulas and bearded dragons. And during holidays, kids would take them all home and care for all the class pets and things like that. And that was really cool. I also grew up with a big appreciation of nature and hiking and that sort of thing. So it was very cool to be able to be in that type of classroom and have a teacher that was that hands-on with stuff, because there's just nothing. Hands-on education is such a huge thing that can make an impact within science. So I think that was a big one that kind of just was science is cool. There's a lot that you can do within this field.
I want to touch on that. You just brought up one of our favorite things, which is hands-on science. And as we know, this podcast is sponsored by FOSS. And one of the beautiful things about it is the kits come with all that stuff. And so in general, science is such a wonderful thing for hands-on. Can we talk a little bit more about that? Why is that so important?
Yeah, so I have, an engineering degree, and I feel like a lot of kids especially don't really understand what engineering is. And it's a lot of the applications of science. And I think one of the best ways to really understand that especially is through hands-on things, whether it's building stuff with, everything from like a Lego type set to some of these more, designing these science experiments and having the chance to actually do them, and the opportunity to go through the scientific process yourself of discovery and have something not work and then figure out why. And like so much of engineering is problem solving and troubleshooting, and being able to see if that's something that you really enjoy doing, and like that's something you want to be a problem solver with your career. So being able to even make that leap from science to engineering and see what the actual scientific process is like for yourself.
And having a mom who collects tubes to make marble runs. Same kind of thing, hands-on. We love that. Actually, as I come from an art background, and one of my favorite things about art is how much of it is failure and how much you have to continue on. And science is the same thing. I think that's what I love about the hands-on part is showing kids that it doesn't always work. Your idea was great, didn't work. How do we fix that? I think that's wonderful. Obviously, as an engineer, that's like key to your whole life.
100%. Yeah. And it's, I think, fun. Kids can figure out that there's fun in that. It's like okay, it didn't work. What's the next thing I can do to improve? It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing because it didn't work. It's kind of part of the process, and being comfortable with that process is amazing if you can do that from a young age.
We always, of course, here feel that science education is very, very important, and unfortunately gets overlooked a lot because of the way testing is always math or English or things like that. But how science is it covers everything. It covers social studies, it covers math, it covers English, it covers writing and communication. How important do you feel personally, your personal philosophy about how important STEM education is in general?
Oh, I mean, so huge. And I feel like there's so much within even just saying STEM education. There's so many components to what that really is, whether it's everything from computer literacy to, again, figuring out and introducing the idea of what engineering is. It's like, I think exposure to that is so crucial. And especially one of the things I'm big on is, trying to make sure women and young girls stay engaged within the STEM fields. And so many of them fall off around middle school and get directed towards other different areas. And I think sometimes it's because you're creative, you should go into the arts, which is like awesome too. And that's why I'm so a big proponent for STEAM and like including art within the STEM acronym. But there's so much creativity within science, technology, engineering, math, and being able to show that to kids from that young age makes you go, oh, maybe I can apply my love of creativity and making things to manufacturing or, welding and things like that. And being able to expose to that wide breadth. Because, there's a lot more careers than just firefighters and teachers, which is what, sometimes kids think from the beginning. And the earlier you can introduce that, it just opens up a whole world for kids to be able to consider.
I mean, your company is Steam Power Media, so obviously it's one of those things. And what I love is I love the A part of the STEAM. I think it's 100%. Super important to have humanities and art because it's an incredibly creative career. I always kind of feel bad when people take creative and assume it's an artist. I'm like, lawyers have to be creative, engineers have to be creative, doctors have to be creative. I mean, that's an important part of it. So I love that that's a focus for you. I'm going to jump to where you had mentioned how important it is as a role model for girls, especially. I'd like to think things have improved since I was in school in the Pleistocene age, but obviously it's still an issue. It is still a male-dominated field. I want to talk a little bit about why representation matters to you. I mean, you're obviously, one of the reasons I love talking to you is that you're a visual, you're there, you're doing it. And young people on social media look at that and say, wow, look at that. She's up in the 0G thing and she's out on the mapping thing. Why, how important is that to you?
Yeah, I think partially, like when I grew up, my STEM role models were Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson type people, which I think, some people think science communication, which is like what my career is called, and they think those are the only jobs you can have is like hosting a TV show. But I think science communication and being a science communicator is really about showing what science jobs are and trying to be there where the science is happening to be able to help people visualize and see what are all the careers that you can have and what are the types of people that could do that, and be able to be that person who is there showing like, oh, that could be me, and being able to help put themselves in those shoes, as well as trying to collaborate with other science communicators that have a variety of other backgrounds that I don't have, and be able to highlight and showcase other amazing scientists and researchers. That's always a huge priority for me, because although I end up in front of the camera quite a bit for what I do, I also do quite a bit behind the scenes, and being able to script and write things to be able to highlight many of these other different people in science and engineering. Again, just to show what are all the career paths you can have and you specifically can have, and that you could be a part of this. It just bringing other people into the fold and showcasing those role models, it makes a big difference.
Especially, I think, in your case, young women who are starting their journey, because it does feel, did you ever feel that it was sort of like, oh, that's really nice that you like this, but, maybe not. Did you ever have any of that? I mean, luckily you seem to have grown up in a family society that's like, no, go do whatever you want. But did you ever run into anything like that?
Yeah, thankfully, I think I did have a pretty good supportive network. And if that was happening, I didn't really notice it, and or my parents helped me like, that doesn't matter. It's fine. Keep going with this. But I think also growing up, I didn't necessarily know exactly what I wanted to do. I feel like people always ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I never had a good answer to that as a kid. I was always like, I don't know. I can give you something adult, but I don't really know. And when I was going into college, even, I was debating between going into journalism or engineering. I had some exposure to all of this stuff, but I get my core was my love of making things. And I think that since I kind of straddled that line a little bit between more of the artistic and, whether it was the writing or, making different art stuff and the science world, I was kind of trying to live in this middle space where I didn't get, pushed back as much. And also I was a very good student. I'm always the straight A student, and people are like, oh, she's good at this. Got it. But when I went into college, I think is when you notice it a little more, and there's like a lot more career paths, and, you're one of 4 women in a 200-person class. You're like, oh, got it. Maybe there's something going on here, and you definitely have to find your community and find your space that will continue that encouragement in a much different environment. And I think that was key going to a large public University of Florida, was like finding those people that could still be your cheerleaders within a much more tough and rigorous environment once you got there.
I love that all of your things, journalism, science, and all this stuff has come together into this new world. I mean, for me...
Hindsight 2020.
Yeah, I know, really. But it's developed so wonderfully for you. And in a way, I mean, I grew up with Carl Sagan was on TV doing things, and that was like huge to me. And then, like you said, Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson. But for you, when did this become like, oh my God, I could do this. This could be a thing. Social media sort of seems to have blown up around a lot of this type of thing. When was it you first said, wait, this is a career path?
Yeah, I think my main transition was in college. So I had 4 engineering internships, and I was like, this is okay, but I don't like have a huge passion for being like a design engineer or something like that. And I had a good entrepreneurship professor actually who told me like, because I was considering minoring in entrepreneurship, and he said, don't minor in entrepreneurship, start your own company instead, you'll learn more. And so at the time, the company I chose to start was a 3D printing jewelry company that made 3D printed science and engineering inspired jewelry when 3D printing was a little less accessible than it is now. And I got to start making outreach materials that were related to this. And in the background, I was still doing writing while I was in engineering. It was kind of like part-time job. I was able to make money for my career and paying for my degree, doing some like writing for places like engineering.com or for like an engineering education company. I just started getting these opportunities that started making me realize there's an education component here I'm really enjoying. There's a communication component, and a lot of engineers around me don't like to write, and I do. And so finding that niche, writing was really my transition. Social media came later. I definitely was not someone who initially gravitated towards Instagram or things like that. But I had opportunities to be a bit more public with my company and trying to share my journey, and saw the value of being a more visible role model in these different forums as they popped up. So the social media evolved a lot slower and over time. And I really got more into that probably around 2018 when I was a journalist at MIT Technology Review, because I started running their Instagram account, which helped make me see what it's like to be more behind a brand and still share science and engineering as well. And that taught me a lot of lessons that helped me make the jump from just kind of like sharing a lot on my personal account and trying to be a little more visible with that to doing it in a more professional context.
I think that's kind of the hardest part, is stepping in front of the camera, really, is that people are very, very knowledgeable about things, but they can't necessarily explain them very well. And I think that's especially true with a lot of scientists. They get so deep into things, but then the general public is looking at them like, what? And so, so that's a rare skill. I think that's really impressive. You've done some amazing things already, and I love looking at some of these things like the 0G thing. Could you talk about that? Because I would love to do that, but I'm not necessarily a heights guy. And I think flying in a plane that would dip suddenly really fast would not make me very happy, but it looks amazing. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll preface with when I worked at NASA for about 4 years. What I did, my focus there was on microgravity research, but doing that in space on the International Space Station. And a dream of mine was to always experience microgravity, and the way you can do that most easily close to Earth is on something called a parabolic flight. And this is basically, it looks similar to any jet you would get on when you're flying anywhere from Atlanta to LA, except a little bit more adventurous path. So the plane follows an up and down path, like an arcing path. It makes a bunch of parabola shapes. And at the top of each of those arcs, when the plane gets up there, they throttle down the engine. And it also gets very quiet inside, which is interesting. You're used to planes. You're always on them in the air. It's very loud. And you're laying on the floor as you kind of like go up. And then as you hit the top, you float. You follow a kind of ballistic trajectory, just like you were throwing a ball. And as you and the airplane both follow this same path, it feels like you're floating inside, and you create a microgravity environment. So I've gotten to fly on 6 of them now, which I feel extremely grateful for. I do a lot of work with Zero G making videos covering their research. So I fly on board their research flights where they have, but usually like somewhere between like I think 4 to 7 groups of researchers who have their experiments bolted down to the floor, and they perform science like astronauts would, and they get to be the hands of their own research rather than directing the astronauts to do it. And it's been an incredible experience to be able to see this research up close as it's happening, and be able to talk to these researchers, and like seeing people's faces for the first time when they go on one of these is just the coolest experience, to see people experiencing microgravity for the first time. And for me, it was such a full circle moment, and just so much joy to be able to experience this thing that I've been like studying and helping share for years.
That is awesome. I know in the movie Apollo 13, they filmed a lot of it on that type of plane, where they filmed like hours and hours and hours. They did hundreds of those things. And they nicknamed it the Vomit Comet, which is one of the reasons I don't want to go on it, actually. But oh my God, that's so amazing. I love that. And also, I just think it's great that as a little girl seeing shuttle launches in Florida, you got to work for NASA. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, what an amazing thing.
Yeah, and I have my grandfather worked on the Apollo and shuttle program. He passed away before I was born, though. So it was it was kind of like our family has a space legacy, and I never got to meet him. But my family has all these like relics from that era and pictures of my mom at the first shuttle launch. And it's very cool to be able to kind of continue that family legacy in a way. I grew up in Florida for that reason, since that's why my family was based down there. And my aunt and another grandfather worked on different elements of aerospace. So definitely very cool. It's funny, like I say, hindsight 2020 now that I've kind of like come to what this career is. But at the time, like I wasn't like aiming to try to work for NASA, where I think some people that's like the goal. Right. But when I saw an opportunity to be able to work as a science communication specialist for the International Space Station, I was like, that sounds like my dream job. Because in addition to liking space, it really is science is what my passion is, and be able to share a huge variety of science. And on the International Space Station, it's not all just about space. There's biology and genetics research, there's robotics research, and being able to jump between all of these different areas of science and continue to learn about it was just a joy. And then be able to explain that. I feel like that's most science communicators are people that like to continue to learn and then explain and be able to jump between 9,000 different areas of science.
It's like you couldn't focus on one, so I'll focus on all of them.
Exactly, yes.
I also love, from what I follow a number of science communicators, and it seems to be a very supportive group. I mean, they really, a lot of times in like content creation is like a lot of competition, or like, I'm better, I have more followers. But you guys, I see you guys showing up at things all together, and I love that. I think that's so wonderful, because it's like you have that common goal of you just want to explain things and learn. I love that.
100%. And a lot of us have like a niche that's our thing, and kind of the area that we've become known within. But then we also recognize the areas that these other people are amazing at highlighting, and want to keep highlighting and sharing that content to our audience as well. So yeah, it's been an amazing online community. And now when you get to go to all these events, being able to meet up with a number of them for the first time is very, very fun.
And also, I think just in general, again, when we come back to science education, is that how important it is to recognize when you don't know something. Yes. And I love that you guys are like, I love this, I don't really know about it, but you do. And that's just that part alone, I think, is super important for kids to see, especially that it's a collaborative thing, it's a creative thing, and it's all about failure and success. I love that. I think that's what's my favorite thing about it. So I also love, I have a friend who works for the Snoopy company, and you get a NASA Silver Snoopy. What exactly is that for?
I did, yeah. Actually, it's behind me right now as I'm talking to you. It's over there. The one of the highest awards that NASA can give is an award from the astronaut office, an award from the astronauts themselves. And I was awarded this for largely my work on sharing ISS research on social media, as well as I did a huge project called the Benefits for Humanity Project, and led this initiative to help revamp this product that is basically showcasing all the ways that what we've done on the space station benefits us back here on Earth. And I led a huge revamp because it was kind of becoming a quantity over quality thing. It was like the book was doubling in size every year. No one was reading this thing. And I was able to make a big revamp on making the stories more human-centric, making it more digital first. And for that, got this award, which one of the awards you get a certificate, you get given it by an astronaut, and you get a space flown pin, a very, very small silver Snoopy pin that I now have, which you don't break it out to wear it very often, but it's very fun to have.
I know it's a big honor because a friend, like I said, a friend of mine works for Snoopy, and I've been a cartoonist all my life, and I love that Charles Schultz got associated with that and the whole space program. It was so interesting how much that helped in a lot of ways, bringing science communication actually back in the 60s. I think that's so wonderful. And now you have
now they even still have a Snoopy in Space TV show, I think on Apple TV or something like that. It's very fun to see it continuing.
It is, again, the art, and see, that's the art part, the STEAM part. Yes. See, that's what we're talking about. I love that.
Exactly.
Recently, I'd like to talk a little bit about, you went on this very, very cool ocean voyage on the Nautilus, where you were not the Jules Verne Nautilus. That's a very different story. Lots of giant squid, very strange. But you went on a ship called the Nautilus, and it's a sea mapping expedition, and a part of your job was you actually offered to do that with us, was you do ship to shore, talking to classrooms and all that kind of stuff. Let's talk a little bit about that, how you got involved with that, and what your role was in talking to people in classrooms and things like that.
Speaking of me not being able to stick to one specific area of science, yes, but my favorite thing about my job is being able to get up close with science as it's happening. Because although I love sharing about space stuff, they're not really sending science communicators to space just yet, you know?
That's why we need a space elevator. I need a space elevator.
There you go. Yes.
I will take a space elevator, 100%.
And so going on ocean expeditions is one of the coolest ways to kind of do that back here on Earth and go on an expedition with scientists who are studying something really interesting. So my trip on Nautilus, I just came back from a couple weeks ago. It was actually my second ocean expedition. My first one I went on was on the JOIDES Resolution. It was a 10-week expedition at the end of 2023. It was more geology focused. And now this one was, as you mentioned, focused on mapping the seafloor. And it was mapping the seafloor off of the islands, uninhabited Howland and Baker Islands, which are part of the U.S. exclusive economic zone, aka U.S. territory, but uninhabited except by millions of birds. And so we were out there mapping some of the least mapped areas of the U.S. exclusive economic zone for science. So one of the biggest reasons that we do this is to be able to know the areas that we need to protect. Because right now when it's unmapped, we don't really know what's down there. And we want to know what are the really important areas that we need to make sure we are protecting these areas in this land for future. And so the first step is going and basically using a multi-beam echo sounder, which is kind of like a sonar that points down and sends down a bunch of pings of sound. And as it reflects back, the faster it reflects back, the shallower the water is. And since we're using so many pings of data on a moving ship constantly doing this, we're able to generate really detailed maps of the seafloor and figure out what's down there. So it was very cool to be able to be on board the ship as we were doing this. And then we use this data, and future expeditions of the same ship use ROVs, or remotely operated vehicles, to send down and be able to get a very, very close-up look of some of the most interesting spots that we found in maps. So based on these maps, you go, that's really interesting. What might be going on down there? And then we can see the animals and things that live down there as well.
I saw that there were two big, there was a giant rover and a smaller rover on board, Hercules or something like that. Yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome. You didn't get to do that this time, but that's super cool.
Yeah, my hopefully maybe one day go back out and see that. But in the meantime, they actually they do have another expedition coming up for the end of their season. They are going to be diving in that area as well. So yeah, and I'll mention for teachers, if you want to do this, I don't know exactly when this is going out, but through December 15th, applications are open to do what I did, and it's open to both educators and informal educators. And awesome. They have like a stipend that pays for a substitute teacher at your school, so to help cover things when it's happening, and so that you can go on board and help explain the science of the expedition.
We will 100% link to that in the show notes for sure. That's awesome. I love those kind of things. I did want to talk a little bit about the challenges of being a content creator, because I do a lot of professional video, and I know how difficult that is. It's one of those things where a lot of people, I think, have this image of like, hold the phone out and that's all you need to do. It's like, no, that's not what you need to do. So I was wondering also, there's a lot of keeping the integrity of science in the world of misinformation and upcoming AI, which frankly terrifies me a little bit, of like somebody could put a video out and saying, this is science, and how do we know? So how important is that for you going forward, especially? It seems to be an issue that's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest assets that I provide right now is being a human that's doing this. You know, I think that especially for a lot of the clients and things that I work with, they come to people like me because they want a human that can fact check and stand behind this. And especially having a technical background, they know that like you understand how to read the technical information and talk to people that have these technical backgrounds and translate that. And so for me, that's one of the biggest things I think, offer. And I think also within that being creative, that element of, again, going back to that creativity that really humans are the only ones that can bring to it, and really conveying some of these scientific topics in a really unique and interesting way, coming up with comparisons that people can relate to, understanding what's going to resonate with certain audiences, and always thinking about what's the thing that's going to make this person specifically understand and appreciate what I'm talking about. And I trying to still, for me, treat content creation as like a creative outlet and not feel there's always a pressure to keep producing quantity, right? Yeah. And the good news is content creation is like a relatively small percentage of my income of what I actually personally put on social media, like on my own channels. The majority of my income comes from the organizations I work with and the things that I make for other people. And I think I'm a little different than someone who's like primarily like first and foremost a YouTuber that's getting money from sponsorships, which that's also awesome too. And I love that people are able to spend full amounts of time on that. Yeah. But it does free me up to be able to cover the things I am most interested in. I feel like most I'm able to cover, and do it when I have time in between all of my other projects. So it's, for right now, a happy medium for me to be able to continue to share the stuff on my own channels that I'm really passionate about, while also still making these connections and supporting these other organizations and sharing what they do. And
also, like I said, as a video guy, there's a ton of work involved. Just editing, putting all this footage together, making it coherent. I mean, that's its own set of skills. It's amazing that you're able to combine all these things into this one amazing career. I think that's fantastic. And, you know, you've floated in planes and you've been out on the ocean and looking at the ocean floor, but you also play competitive pinball, which I think is the coolest thing. I just got very quickly, I got to ask you, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so I moved down to Houston for my job at NASA like 8 months before COVID hit. And coming out of it, I was like, what's my way that I can meet people around town? And I came across the fact that we have in Houston, where I live, a kind of amazing pinball scene. And I've always liked it. I played it a bit growing up and stuff. And I went out to my first pinball tournament locally and I got hooked. So I definitely got last in all of my first ones, but it was a community that was really amazing, and the people, and you know, my love of engineering and all things like physical and stuff like that. It was just a really great match. And since then, I've gotten a lot better. And still, whenever I have the chance, when I'm traveling, try to find a pinball machine or our arcade or a tournament. And when I'm back here for our larger tournaments, going to compete in those too.
Do you have any tips? Like, what am I looking for? Because I was never very good at pinball. I love it, but never very good at it.
My biggest tips are shoot the flashing lights. The machine's probably trying to tell you something, and don't be afraid to move the machine, because I think people who are first playing think it's like against the rules, but don't move it too much or you'll tilt it. The whole thing will shut off, but it's an asset. It's a resource. You got to be able to bounce the ball around a little bit.
I love pinball. I love that. I mean, I grew up just before the arcade world hit, and it has still survived. I love that it's this analog game that just won't go away, and it's got a huge community. I mean, I just love that. I think that's great. Yeah. And also kind of very sciencey, I think. You know, there's a lot of math going on in pinball. It's awesome stuff. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of engineering companies still making new machines every year. So
yeah, they got to come up with new stuff all the time, right? Yeah, new tech, new hidden things that you have to do. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Erin, this has been wonderful. I love talking to people with a passion for these kind of things and for science, especially for education and reaching out to kids of all ages, but especially the role model that you are providing for young girls who are wanting to get into this, and for everybody, really, access for everyone. And it's just it's a great thing that you do. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a bunch of fun.
It's time for science, and it is time to talk to Kelly Guarino, the Education Program Coordinator for the Ocean Exploration Trust. As you heard in the previous interview with Erin Winick Anthony, Erin talked about the recent expedition she joined doing seafloor mapping, where she did all sorts of cool ship-to-shore interactions with classrooms, talking about the cool science behind the mission. And we found out that the Ocean Exploration Trust has at-sea programs that educators and students can join through their Science Communication Fellowship and Science and Engineering Internship programs. They're accepting applications for the 2026 expeditions, and we wanted to find out more and make sure that our listeners have an opportunity to apply for this amazing science experience. So Kelly, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, when we first heard about Erin, you guys actually had reached out that you were going to, how about doing some ship to shore with us, but I wasn't quite sure of the technology, and we didn't want to mess anything up with you guys, not as important as talking to classrooms. So it was great to talk to Erin, but when she mentioned that teachers can apply for this, we're very, very excited. So I just want to talk a little bit quickly about, you've been with them for a while now. I think you've been on expeditions since 2014. I looked up your stuff. And so let's talk a little bit about your background and the Ocean Exploration Trust in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are right. So this was my first post-college graduation job. I have been with Ocean Exploration Trust now for 11 years. And wow. I've been on over 10 different expeditions since 2014, all over, ranging from the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, Pacific Ocean. It's been a really wild ride to be on, which is really exciting as well. But the Ocean Exploration Trust is a nonprofit whose president and founder is Dr. Robert Ballard. I'm sure Erin probably talked about this, but for anyone who doesn't know, he is the finder of the Titanic, but also discovered that life can survive on the seafloor using chemosynthesis instead of photosynthesis, so using chemicals to survive instead of the sunlight. So I know he has lots of credits to his name, but the science is something that he's also
those
really
are two pretty good credits.
About.
I'll give him that. Yeah, that's good resume stuff there. I like that.
Absolutely. So the Ocean Exploration Trust, we own and operate a vessel, an exploration vessel called EV Nautilus. It's been around for since the late 60s, but we've been exploring using that vessel for about 15 years now. And our main goal is to just go where no one's been before, explore where no one's been, and use different technology instead of people to dive to the seafloor and just see what's down there. And really be the first step for all of our viewers, all of the scientists who are turning in, just to see what's in the various locations that we're going to.
It's sort of like Star Trek for the oceans. You're going where no one has been before. I love that. That's so cool. So let's talk specifically about the Nautilus expeditions and about this Science Communication Fellowship. How can teachers apply for this, and what exactly does it entail, and who are you looking for?
Yeah, great question. So our Science Communication Fellowship is open to any educator. Does not need to be a classroom educator. So we do take classroom educators in any range, K to 12, college professors, but we also take informal educators. So they can be artists, they can be writers, they can be community members, they can work in museums or science centers. Anyone that has a passion for science communication and who wants to bring that back to their community and tell everyone about what they've seen, what they're doing, how they can be involved is who we're looking for. It's kind of a 3-part fellowship. It's a year long, but you're only at sea for a certain section, a certain amount of time. So we do bring all of our accepted fellows to a forum, kind of a training session that lasts a couple of days. We bring everyone together to meet our team, to meet each other, and talk about the science and the communication style that we have on board Nautilus. Then you get to go to sea for an expedition throughout our season, and that's anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks. But then we also really want all of our fellows to go back home into their communities and bring this experience back with them. Create lessons for their classrooms, create museum exhibits if that's where they work, create artwork or write stories about us, and just help us spread the word of who we are and what we do in their own words, in their own kind of vision of what they experience, since everyone coming to see has a whole different experience from somebody else. So our fellowship is open. Currently, applications are open. The deadline is December 1st. So yeah, it's just a lot of really interesting people get to apply and get to come with us. It is open to a few different nationalities. There's a few kind of requirements that we have. Right now for the 2026 season, it's open to U.S. citizens, nationals, or lawful permanent residents of the United States, and also citizens of the countries that our program is federally authorized to operate in. And for 2026, those are countries that include Japan, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, Palau, Solomon Islands, and also the Cook Islands. And then we do have an application packet, which can be found on our website under nautiluslive.org/education. You'll see a tab that says educators. You just click on that, and there's a full packet. It's quite lengthy. It's about 20 different pages. But all of that packet has much more information on eligibility, what's required, and how the fellowship plays out throughout the year.
I absolutely adore that it's more than just educators. I think that's great. I mean, obviously that's our target audience, but I love the idea that you're looking for artists and for people who are just passionate about it. It's sort of like, it must be interesting for you guys with people like Erin, because science communication has blown up, I would think, over the past couple of years because of Instagram and social media. But you guys have been doing this for quite a while. And so the fact that you're bringing this passion for everybody, that's wonderful. We'll definitely have links down below. I also did see that there's a science and engineering internship program. What's that about?
Yeah, so we have an internship program for college students, and that can be college students who are enrolled currently in a university or a college, community college. Graduate students are also eligible to apply, and also recent graduates up to 2 years post-graduation are eligible as well, as they're trying to make it in the workforce post graduating from wherever they were at. We have 4 different internship types that are open to the public. That is in ROV, remotely operating vehicles engineering internship. We have a video systems engineering internship. We have an ocean science internship, and also a seafloor mapping and hydrography internship. So a lot of different types to go about there. Everyone can apply to 2 if they have 2 that they're passionate about. And the same kind of rules apply. It's not a year-long fellowship like our educators, but each intern gets to sail for 3 to 5 weeks on one expedition, learning from experts in their field. Everyone that gets to go out on the ship has a really important role while they're out there, and same thing for our interns. You are part of the mission. You are doing something just like everybody else on your team. It's not kind of a traditional internship that maybe you would think of in an office building. You are operating a vehicle if you're an ROV engineering intern. You are collecting data and processing samples if you're an ocean science intern. So our interns are critical to our mission. Same thing as the fellowship. Applications are currently open for our internship program, but they do have a longer application timeline. So deadlines for the internship is January 4th of next year.
Okay, as a guy who did video, I wish I'd known about this, because it sounds like, because you guys have a very impressive video setup, the ship to shore thing, and I mean it's high level stuff. It's very, very, very cool. So, well, Kelly, thank you so much for this. We'll have links down below for everybody to go and find out more information and download these packets. And I just want to thank you so much. What an amazing organization. We're so excited to be talking about this.
Oh, absolutely. And I hope some of your viewers do want to apply, or also spread the word to any of their colleagues or their networks to also apply. It's a competitive program, but we love having new faces and new people out on the ship, and every year is different. So hopefully someone wants to come out.
It's Time for Science is produced, recorded, and edited by David Lipman and Tom Racine, and is sponsored by School Specialty and FOSS, the Full Option Science System, at the Lawrence Hall of Science, UC Berkeley. Be sure to check out FOSS on Facebook and Instagram.